These are some samples of some tubes that were knitted on the plastic circular knitting machine. The one I used was the Loops and Thread from Michaels. It has 40 needles on it, and when you do an E-wrap cast on, you're always going to get a very loose edge like this because the needles are so far apart, and you have to adjust each loop after you get it off the machine. Another way is to do it off of the machine, and it looks just like an E-wrap cast on when you get finished. And I'm going to try to show how to do that today, and also how to do the ribbing off the loom. For the sample, I'm going to start and end the project with several rows of waste yarn. At the end, I'm just going to leave the stitches live and just drop it off of the machine. But at the beginning, I'm going to start with a regular cast on that most everybody knows how to do. But I'm going to add an extra little loop at the end that's going to help me get rid of the end that has the cast on. So just go ahead and do your weaving cast on where you go in and out of the needles, and then I'll show you the extra little step that I do. I just finished running my yarn in front of this needle, and it's going to go behind my last needle. So instead of cutting the yarn right here, well, actually I need a few more rows anyway, I'm going to go ahead and thread the carriage and leave a long loop on the back and just pin it to keep it together and out of my way. And then I'm just going to continue knitting a few rows of waste yarn for my sample. I'll do 6 or 7. I finished my rounds of waste yarn, so now I'm going to thread the machine up with my main yarn. But I need to leave enough of a tail to do the handwork with. So just measure your piece around the edges, and mine is probably about 12 inches around, so I need to do about 3 times that amount so that I'll have enough thread to do the backstitch technique. So I'm just going to measure out a good sized tail. I like to have plenty. You don't want to run out at the end. So just drop the excess tail down into the machine, and I like to use a tensioner so I don't have to hold on to the yarn, and then just knit your project. In my case, it's just going to be a tubular sample, and just knit as many rows as you need for your project. Just like I did on the beginning round of my main yarn, I left a long tail for the handwork. I need to do that at the end of my project also. So I'm going to measure out 3 times the width of my project, or 3 times around the circumference of your project, and be generous with that amount that you leave. And you can go ahead and cut your main yarn. If this was the end that you were going to use your ribbing on this end, you could thread up a needle with some thick yarn, or use a circular knitting needle and remove your stitches onto that. But I'm going to go ahead and knit a few more rounds of waste yarn. Now I'm going to cut my waste yarn and drop my knitting from the machine. And these stitches will be live on this end.